The justices rule that the consideration of race in college admissions is unconstitutional. Let's bring in Evan Kamenecker. He's a former dean and former constitutional law professor at the University of Michigan. Let's also, are we bringing in Ed? Is not yet. All right, let's talk to Evan first. All right, so Evan, let me ask you. If you're just following along with the special report, even before the special report, we were having a discussion about this. So help me understand something. If a university chooses to, for example, admit students that are legacies, in other words, they have parents or both parents who went to that university and also donate to that university. I'm specifically thinking about Harvard University, which some reports suggest 43% of applicants to Harvard admissions are white legacy students. 75% of those, according to the reports, would not have been admitted if their parents were not wealthy or donors or alumni to the university.
Applicants or they get in?
Sorry?
You said applicants. You mean applicants or the people that actually get in?
43% of Harvard admissions. People who get in. 43% of Harvard admissions are white legacy students. 75% of those would have been rejected if their parents were not wealthy or alumni to Harvard University. Could someone bring a case before the Supreme Court and say that is unconstitutional?
No. And the reason is because the statutes or the Constitution don't speak to discrimination on grounds like that. The Constitution speaks to discrimination with respect to race, with respect to sex, color, religion, national origin. But it would basically say that institutions could take into account legacy or money or things like that, as long as they have a rational basis for doing so. Now, that doesn't mean it's a good idea. And increasingly, universities, particularly private universities, have either reduced or stopped the practice of taking legacy into account. And to some extent, it is because they think that it has had a negative impact on racial diversity. But that doesn't mean it is nonsensical to do. It's nice for a university to have people who feel comfortable there, who feel excited to be there. And I suspect that some universities at least, will continue to choose to do so.
Can we talk a little bit about the dissent? The counter argument. I know that Justice Sotomayor, when she was listening to the arguments, she was questioning whether or not race. She was talking about the fact that race, in fact, does have an impact on your options if you grow up in this country. Other countries do, but we're talking about this country. That, in fact, African American kids often end up in schools where there are fewer resources, where perhaps some of the teachers aren't trained as much. And to ignore that is detrimental and is dishonest in a way. Can we talk about what the dissent sort of played out, or what the dissent had to say?
Sure. Well, a couple things. I actually am quite intimately aware of the conditions in the Detroit public city schools, for example. Recently was involved in a lawsuit there that showed that the schools were essentially schools in name only. You had buildings that were falling apart, no air conditioning, no heating that worked, vermin that had to be scurried out or cleaned up after in the morning. As you say, shortage of teachers, shortage of accredited teachers, no homework that could be given to the students because they don't have enough textbooks to go around, and they had no access to laptops. So students do whatever work they can do in school, and there's no homework that can be done. Now, obviously, when you have lots of urban areas in our country that tend to be minority dominant, that tend to have schools that are less well preparing them less well for higher education, it's not a surprise that they don't have the same opportunity to show their accomplishments, to do well on test scores, to wow their students with great essays, to do all the kinds of things that normally you have to do to present yourself well on in a college admissions application. But I'll say something more generally. One of the things that the Supreme Court majority focuses on is the negative impacts that it claims come from affirmative action, basically talking about the idea that for every minority student who gets in, or in your earlier question, for every legacy student, I guess, who gets in, somebody's not admitted. And I think it's important to understand that many, many more people feel aggrieved by affirmative action programs than actually are. So there may be a university that, for example, because of affirmative action, let's say 500 additional students get in who might not have otherwise. But 30,000 applicants who were denied might all feel that they were left out because of affirmative action. I talk to my students about driving around a crowded parking lot, and you keep going and going, and all the spots are taken except one that's reserved for service vehicles. And you think, dude, if that were not reserved, I'd be parked and I'd be shopping by now. But there's 100 cars circling, and all 100 drivers think they're the ones who are being disadvantaged because the one spot is reserved. Reality, only one of you are.
And
And that may also be.
So I was going to say, that reminds me of the previous case that came up, and you probably have a better memory than me, but it was a young woman that was at the center of it. I think probably funded by the same group or a similar group. But at the end of the day, her claim that she was detrimentally impacted by affirmative action was rejected because she really didn't have the grades.
Yeah, and that's something that
exactly
we see, and it'll be interesting to see. I don't cover education, but I know, for example, that the state of California has done away with affirmative action in the California university school system. They've had that in place since 1996, or they have taken it away, done away with it since 1996. It would be interesting to see what the results have been in the UC system. Professor, just stand by for a moment, because I want to bring in our senior White House and political correspondent, Ed O'Keefe, who is joining us from the White House. So Ed, so sort of broadly speaking here, this latest decision by the Supreme Court with its conservative tilt is again indicative of this sort of upending of decades of sort of established jurisprudence that's sort of redefining, I think, in 2023, in the last couple of years, our American life on a series of contentious issues like, for example, this one, and before it, Roe versus Wade.
Yeah. And as we mentioned a little while ago during the special report, I think it's important to remember that there were conservative justices 20 years ago foreseeing today. Sandra Day O'Connor at the time, writing in a similar case that dealt with affirmative action in colleges, saying there may come a day when this court ultimately determines, based on how society is going, and yes, because of the balance of the court, that this is no longer going to be allowed. And that is essentially what they're doing today. And again, it eliminates race as a factor alongside your scores and a handful of other things. But what the court says in its opinion is that it can be included amid a mix of other things, as if it were part of the interview process or an essay that's submitted that talks about some challenge you overcame in your life. And so it's not going to be eliminated entirely. It's just not going to be able to be weighted as equally as other things and as explicitly, because those that were pushing for this change have argued because of that process, there were Asian American students especially who they believe suffered and were denied admission to Harvard and the University of North Carolina and other institutions because they were using such a system. And again, it's important to point out, California, the place that most Americans would consider the bluest, the most liberal state of them all, rejected a referendum on this issue, a few years ago. And across that state, they said it wasn't necessarily necessary. And why wasn't it necessary? Well, there's evidence that among Hispanic, Asian, and Black voters in that state, that they don't necessarily support it at all, the idea of race-based college admissions or the need for it, because increasingly those students are able to get into university based on the merits, based on their scores, based on the fact that their families have gotten to a point economically and socially where they can get into college. That's not to say writ large that's the case, but you're starting to see the change in part because those minority communities that programs like this were once intended to help are arguing increasingly, maybe not a majority of them, but enough of it is showing that the numbers are changing in such a way that perhaps, hey, maybe we don't need that anymore to help us because we can do it on the merits. Perhaps that's where the court is trying to steer the country. That's an abrupt change. It's not going to sit well with many Americans. But in our own polling, 53% of Americans support affirmative action broadly. 70% in a recent CBS News poll said they oppose the use of race-based college admissions. So in essence, society or the country is to some extent with the court. Again, that's affirmative action overall. 53% believe it should be continued, 47% abolished. But on the specific question of race-based college admissions, there you go. And this is the partisan breakdown. 74% of Americans think it should be, or Democrats should be continued. Notably, only 47% of independents and 30% of Republicans think affirmative action should be continued. If we have the next slide on race-based college admissions, it's 70% don't think it should be allowed, 30% think it should be. You break that down, partisan differences exist but aren't overly dramatic. Republicans are widely opposed, and they're joined in that view by more than half of Democrats and by 3 out of 4 independents. Black Americans relatively more likely than white Americans to say colleges should be allowed to consider race, but still just split on it. College graduates are slightly likelier than people without college degrees to say so too. So, and then there's this important question: how much discrimination exists today? Notice the smaller numbers there as you go, though. 48% of Black people say there is a lot, 28% of Hispanics, quarter of Asians, 17% of white people. So, you know, thinking on this is changing, and maybe changing in ways that people may not realize. Supreme Court doesn't take its cues from public opinion, but certainly, as you said, Vlad, this is a change in.
No, they take it from white supremacist rhetoric. And if you saw that stat, ladies and gentlemen, you had 25%, if you look carefully, let's go back, Asians think there's a lot of discrimination versus 51% who say some. So that says a lot, especially about today, because what happened with affirmative action, this lawsuit that was brought, which, by the way, it is Students for Fair Admissions Incorporated versus President and Fellows of Harvard. These were Asian students that brought this case before the Supreme Court. And the question was, this race-based admissions that were used by Harvard and UNC, because it was University of North Carolina as well. Well, is it lawful under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment? And today, although it was not a surprise to me, all of the East judges, I believe it was 6-2. The reason why it was 6-2 is because Ketanji Brown Jackson had to disqualify herself, I believe, from voting, although she wrote a dissent. Sotomayor dissented and Jackson dissented. I'm sorry, was it who else was? I might have gotten that up. I think Ketanji Brown Jackson did dissent. Yes, she did dissent, I know for a fact, but it was Chief Justice John Roberts who wrote the opinion of the court. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My apologies for starting a little late. I just had to throw this shirt on, but if you see under it, I've been working. I had to work outside because the parents were calling me to work on a tie. Anybody that has to deal with old people, raise your hands. You know what it's like when they're not dealing with technology and you got to lift heavy stuff. Shawn, raise your hand, because I know you deal with it. Good evening, by the way, Brother Shawn.
Good evening, Gavin. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Shawn. Shawn, of course, is always joins us on this Thursday. This is Random Topic Thursdays, the hottest live stream on YouTube and on social media, I should say, rather. We are bringing the heat. That's why I just wanted to just jump right into this. So the big news, of course, today, as you see, is that SCOTUS guts affirmative action. Now, this case, basically, the Supreme Court decision, as we know it, which is the case of Students for Fair Admissions versus the President Fellows of Harvard, has gutted affirmative action. Affirmative action officially is dead. Now, in terms of schools, now, I didn't watch the news today. I've seen different stories about it, people that gave their opinion, but Chief Justice John Roberts wrote, quote, that lack sufficiently focused and measurable objectives warranting the use of race, unavoidably employ race in a negative manner involve racial stereotyping, and lack meaningful endpoints, those admission programs cannot be reconciled with the guarantees of the Equal Protection Clause. The court did note it didn't rule out race entirely in admissions programs, adding, quote, nothing prohibits universities from considering an application discussing of how race affected the applicant's life, so long as the discussion is concretely tied to a quality of character or unique ability that the particular applicant can contribute to the university. But we all know that that's bullshit, because let's be real, a white boy has never lived the life a black man has ever lived. He's never walked in our shoes. Now, this case overturns the Bakke decision of 1978, when, of course, not Clarence Thomas wasn't on there, but I got to talk about Uncle Clarence because he had to throw his 3 cents in. And we know that Clarence Thomas really doesn't say anything too much, but of course, he actually says in his decision, he doesn't even know what diversity means. And this is a man who got where he was solely because of affirmative action and being a token. He was put in to replace what Thurgood Marshall fought for. He was there when George W. Bush appointed him to be a rubber stamp for all of his policies, everything for the Republican Party, for conservatives. That's who Clarence Thomas was. So I'm not surprised by this decision. But I do want to point out that you had Roberts, Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett. 6 justices that voted for this. Yeah, Ketanji Brown Jackson couldn't vote. She took part in no consideration of the case because of her ties to Harvard. But this is something that might actually backfire on Asians, because remember, they're not the majority in the country. But they see themselves, and we know this, Shawn, especially, Asians consider themselves a part of the majority of the United States, which is whites. They see themselves in that culture, am I right? So it doesn't surprise me when we showed that video, as I showed that video, that it said 25% believed there was a lot of discrimination versus the 54% who said there was some. Now, I will say this. Affirmative action in general, when it was created by Lyndon Baines Johnson, it was designed to remedy racial discrimination against blacks. That was the intent of that. And I find it interesting and ironic, Shawn, that the 14th Amendment, which was used to give African Americans, Black Americans, their citizenship of the United States so that they could be a protected class, now that very 14th Amendment is being used against them. It's being used to support these fair admission students, white folks now. But affirmative action in reality has always benefited white women. But this was only in terms, I want to clarify, this was only in terms of college admissions. We're not talking about workplaces and hiring and so forth. That hasn't come yet. But Shawn, I will let you talk, sir.
Well, this whole situation with affirmative action, I can say that the left and the right basically orchestrated this. And they orchestrated this because they really don't want to give Black people any sort of opportunity at their institutions. Really, this whole thing is just a farce where they're trying to make it look like the conservative justices are the bad guys. But if we listen to the report back in California, they had already turned down and ended affirmative action in California, but they want to make it look like the Supreme Court are a bunch of bad guys when both sides are just trying to play each side off. because both sides of white supremacy really don't want to see Black people get empowered by affirmative action. Now, affirmative action was originally meant to give Black people equal opportunities due to past discrimination that people suffered during Jim Crow. And that's the thing nobody really wants to talk about. Really, originally, affirmative action was supposed to give Black students an opportunity to be able to go to colleges they were denied opportunities to go to, all due to policies such as Jim Crow and racist policies that related to funding of school systems. This was supposed to be about getting Black students an opportunity. However, what's really ironic is you've got Asians sitting there talking about how they are being discriminated against when Asians are the ones who piggybacked on Black communities and piggybacked on Black students. I mean, I find it interesting. They're sitting there talking about discrimination when a lot of these individuals basically came out here and opened businesses in Black communities, took Black dollars out of Black communities, went and took their kids and sent their kids to private schools on Black dollars. And now they're talking about discrimination when they were given opportunities that Black people weren't able to get. I mean, Black people, even as America was going on, our soldiers didn't get any advantage of the GI Bill. Our soldiers who were Black didn't get an opportunity to get themselves homes. They didn't get any sort of opportunities. And a lot of times we had to come and pay out of our own pocket or go to city schools. So when I listen to these people talking about Asian discrimination, I have to call BS on that. I mean, how are you being discriminated against when you got opportunities over Black people? And again, I look at this whole situation and it looks like, again, another attempt to rig the system to keep Black students from coming into these schools. And they want to make it look like it's some sort of advantage, but the entire college consumer product system, this may wind up backfiring on them, and it may wind up backfiring on all of their model minorities, because what the white supremacists are going to look to try to do.
Too. I hope it's going to backfire big on him.
Yeah, it's going to backfire big on them, because what's going to happen is many of these model minorities, such as Hispanics and Asians, when they find themselves being told that they don't qualify, what's going to happen is they're going to realize, hey, that affirmative action that you threw away, and what the government is used to manipulate Black as related to policy, because many of the Black students didn't benefit from affirmative action, especially heterosexual Black men. I mean, many of these policies for affirmative action mostly went to white women, went to Hispanics, went to Asians, went to Indians and Arabs. I mean, they were able to benefit, but most Black people, we didn't get any benefits from this at all. And I can't wait to see this backfire on all these so-called minorities when these white supremacists show them what color they truly are.
For those wondering who was the jackass I put up, that was Vivek Ramaswamy, because he always
Ramaswamy.
Swami, whatever the hell he calls himself.
No, I'm just mocking him because he's smarmy. He's a smarmy racist.
He's just an asshole. He's an asshole.
Yep.
Racist asshole. But people like this is an Asian, somebody from India. His family is from India. They benefited from the civil rights movement of the 1960s that Black folks fought for. And in the 1970s, and we got to talk about this, one of the things that happened, you had an influx of immigrants, especially after the Vietnam War, from Asia that were coming in. And there was a resolution. Tariq Nasheed talks about this, and Shawn, you might want to do a video on it. But if you ever heard of this, some of the Black leaders at that time, individuals, I believe Coretta Scott King was one of them, they had supported some type of resolution of supporting immigrants coming into the country. Now, you all know me. I'm not a racist man. Black man can't be racist, in my opinion, because I have no power. I have no power to tell you where to go eat, where to live, what school you can go to, where you can send your children to. I don't have that. And I don't practice that and believe in that. But I do believe in Black economics. I do believe in empowering ourselves. We don't have those opportunities like other groups. But I want y'all to understand what's going on tonight. Affirmative action, I mean, is it a loss for us? While I'm going hard about this, it's not a total loss because we have been basically in the corner pocket even after these laws were passed. We dropped the ball somewhere. Our parents and grandparents dropped the ball. And we're talking about Uncle Clarence, and speaking of Clarence Thomas, talking about him. He was someone, and Shawn and I talked about this earlier, that had basically got where he had wanted to, these baby boomers and what they do. I got mine. I don't need to give you anything else. Why don't you go and get it? I don't leave nothing to you. And that's a problem that I see today where we're not leaving anything to our children, to our grandchildren. You're leaving them no legacy. And we're suffering because of that. And mind you, the Asian community, they already can get into these schools. They don't can get into these schools. You know how they get in these schools too? They can even afford it. They have their parents and grandparents who have their shops in our neighborhoods, their grocery stores, their gas stations, their convenience stores that we patronize. And they go and they have money and they take their children and they give them, they keep their money to themselves. And guess what? They send it back to the other country, to their home country. They can get a line of credit you and I can't get to open a business. And I'm not saying this out of hatred. I'm saying it as a damn fact. War has been declared, ladies and gentlemen. You can't sit on the sideline. You got to pick up your rifle and your hat and fight. I'm trying my damnedest right now. And Shawn, I know you're trying your damnedest to get income, to do multiple things. And if we're going to try and get something and fight together, then we got to unify. This actually is a good thing in a way because now we realize what's going on. We got to wake up. We've been asleep. The body has been in apathy. You ever heard of that? Muscle apathy? And you've been in a coma so long and you wake up and you can't move? That's us. This is a wake-up call. What's up, DeAndre? Shawn, I don't know if you agree with that, but Clarence Thomas, he doesn't know diversity. This is a man, and this is a man who used to idolize Malcolm X. He had Malcolm X hanging on his wall when he was in college. He was part of the Black Power movement. A lot of people forget that about Clarence Thomas. What happened? I'm not going to read this entire Supreme Court page, but I'm going to, this Supreme Court opinion is 227 pages long, but you can go read it. I'm going to put the link here. It's in the chat. Shawn, you can continue if you have something else you wanted to say.
Yeah, well, this whole decision basically shows me the selfishness of baby boomers like Clarence Thomas and how they've got the I've got mine, screw you mentality. And they're talking about diversity. And again, diversity at many of these colleges, even with affirmative action, the numbers were really low on as related to Black students. So again, when they talk about so-called diversity, they always come in with this quote unquote minorities. But you see how these programs have not benefited Black people. And again, this was supposed to help Black Americans as related to past discrimination. And these whole policies haven't really done anything. And we've watched as people piggyback on us. And what's sad is you've got bootlicks like Clarence Thomas who want to say, oh, I don't know what diversity is. I mean, he's no different than Ketanji Clown Jackson, who said, what is a woman?
What a
And
woman
again,
was,
shows
right.
me how he's based. This whole thing is related to affirmative action. Both sides are controlled opposition, and both sides really wanted to see an opportunity to deny Black people an opportunity to go to college. And again, they didn't want us going to their colleges. But if we want to empower ourselves, we have to focus on building up our own institutions and focus on getting our students into institutions on our own. We have to, again, focus on empowering ourselves because it's clear the government isn't on our side. And this is a problem we have because a lot of boomers, they took life for granted. They took the opportunities they had for granted. And again, we've got individuals who got the, again, I got mine, screw you mentality. And they've screwed the future generations as related to trying to get college admissions through affirmative action. But they really, again, affirmative action really wasn't doing much for Black people because all these minorities were getting in at our expense because many Black people were taking everything that was given to them for granted. A lot of the boomers took everything for granted and didn't think to help the next generation come up, like many of the silent generation folks like Bill Cosby did.
All right, y'all. Sorry about that. Y'all know I'm still trying to come over this sinus infection. I'm getting there day by day. I'm drinking water. That's why my voice sounds a little bit different. I sound like an old man that's been in a bar singing the blues. Y'all remember a Soldier Story, that movie?
Yeah.
Sergeant Waters, it told Denzel, you throw a pretty neat punch and sound like him. But those
I'll be right
soldiers
back.
kick your ass. You spot with white folks singing the blues. Yeah, Adolf Caesar. I can do Charles Barkley, but even do Charles Barkley, it sounds like he got a voice infection here, Ernie. So personally, Ernie, I just will say I sure, Dad. So we got old people. I have to take a look at Alexa next. Yeah, it was. Adolf Caesar actually died. Died before that, after that movie was made. But I just want to say, since we celebrate Black Music Month, June is Black Music Month. This is the last. Yeah, we know this, Shawn.
Yeah.
Since it is Black Music Month, I put it on my YouTube page, GBoo2786. Y'all can go like and hit who we're honoring today. I'm just telling everybody who we're honoring today. Today, ladies and gentlemen, the songwriting team of Whitfield and Strong, Grammy Award-winning team who were responsible for songs such as I Heard It Through the Grapevine and Just by Imagination. Papa Was a Rolling Stone. We also had I Know I'm Losing You by the Temptations. Whitfield had something to do with that. But these guys linked up together. They also made Too Busy Thinking About My Baby. And I Heard It Through the Grapevine from Marvin Gaye and Gladys Knight. At one time, it was actually Motown's biggest selling single until the Jackson 5 came out with I'll Be There, which of course got overtopped by End of the Road by Boyz II Men in the 1990s. But they also got Motown its first Grammy with Cloud Nine on the Temptations album that featured Dennis Edwards coming in the place of David Ruffin, and Ball of Confusion, and Running Ray Child, Running Wild. Dad said he wanted to hear. Okay, sorry, y'all. So we're saluting Of course, we just reached Norman Whitfield has passed on. He passed away in 2008. Barrett Strong actually just passed away recently, if I'm not mistaken. Barrett Strong, on another note, he was responsible for Motown's first biggest selling single, which was written by Berry Gordy, called Money, which That's What I Want, which is what Berry Gordy wanted, which is what everybody wants, some money. And you, speaking of money, please donate to the Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle, as this channel is not monetized. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're saluting Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong, the Hitsville creative team behind the Temptations and many hits. I'm Gavin Richard, and this is your Black Music Moment. Great songwriters and producers, Shawn, that can't be replicated.
Nope.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite song that this team has made?
I like the Grapevine one, and also many of the. I don't know that much. I'm not really in the music that much, so I really don't know who anybody really is.
Well, my dad said beauty is only skin deep. I think that was Norman Whitfield. But Norman Whitfield also wrote Car Wash.
Oh, that's nice to know.
Yeah, he wrote that by himself. I think at that time he and Barrett Strong had broken up. But I'm into music because I write songs. I have songs I'm still working on. I have some stuff I'm trying to do before the end of the year. Actually coming, I want to come out with a full album. I'm actually working on a comedy album that I'm going to be doing. Planning to shoot probably in September. So I'm doing big stuff. That's just part of what we have to do. But you got to be active, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to move forward in this life. But yeah, he was responsible for many of the Temptations hits, especially in the 70s. When you look at one of my favorites, actually, is Masterpiece, which is the Temptations album from '73, and they talked about everyday thing in the ghetto. Of course, you may not know that, but I know that. Dad knows that, I'm sure. Oh no, here comes. Whoa. All right. Thank you, Dad. All right. Say hi first, Dad.
Hey, hi, people. Hope everybody is safe and well.
You heard him?
Tell Clarence Thomas to kiss your ass.
I'm sure he heard that, Dad.
Hope he did.
He said Clarence Thomas can kiss his ass. Old people. Guess that's gonna be me in 30 years. In a wheelchair, coming up to see my son or my daughter, their podcast, screwing their shit up, trolling them. No, he's good. But thank y'all. Thank y'all for blessing the dad. Yeah. So yeah, man. But we gotta keep in mind, Shawn, this is Black Music Month. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that, and also just with the affirmative action thing. I think we've finished with that aspect of it. But I'll just say one final thing, guys. This is business time. Now you realize, though, if they're gunning it for education, just remember what's going to happen in a couple of years. You're going to have an employment issue. It's not going to stop with that. So we're at admissions for college. Next is going to be a workplace issue. I got to have these minorities, a quota. I'm tired of it. This is not fair to the white man. I want this. And let's be real, Shawn, if we look at it, they have had affirmative action before. Theirs is based on, if it's based off legacy, if it's based on who I know, that is a form of their affirmative action. I'm looking out for someone.
Yep. But they only want to look out for whites.
They want to look out for themselves. And that's where we are. They don't look after whites, exactly.
They want set aside for them, not for anybody else.
Yeah. hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Hit the notification bell, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna go into this next topic. This is some lighter news. I just got two topics I want to talk about. I don't want to be too long today, but have y'all heard about this? 22 years old, ladies and gentlemen. Zion Williams has his first baby already on the way with his girlfriend, a daughter, I believe, that's hasn't been born yet. 22 years old, and Zion Williamson has now smashed more porn stars than he has smashed goals in a regular season game. Accordingly, Zion Williamson has smashed another, I said prostitute, excuse me, porn star, got her pregnant. This is the crazy woman we've seen. Now, Shawn has done a video on Miss Hills, Mariah Mills, who, as we know, when we found out that Zion Williamson was having a baby, she went off on this tangent about how he slept with her and had sex tape videos, and she was mad because he was having a relationship with another woman, essentially. And she was saying, "You better be, I'm late, and you better be careful, because if I'm pregnant, it's on." You know what she's looking for? These are gold diggers. Put it in a PC word. And this afternoon or this morning, it was reported that Miss Mills, who has been banned from Twitter, by the way, because basically she tried to extort, she actually sent a tweet to the NBA, her Twitter, to try extort, basically telling him he needed to be traded and all this stuff. She's essentially trying to extort the man. That's what it comes down to. She's trying to extort the man. And on her Instagram page, she had this picture posted suggesting she was pregnant. Now, we don't know if she is pregnant. Let's say, first off, we don't know if that pregnancy test came from her. She could have gotten it off the internet, for all we know. We don't know, even if she is pregnant, if Zion Williamson is the father. That is Zion Williams' current girlfriend. And these are the text messages, the tweets that she's put out. Telling him, you're going to lose everything and suffer what you did to me. Justice, you're going to lose everything and fail. You'll never come back from this. It's over for you. You will lose all your endorsements if the sex tapes drop, Zion Williamson. You're about to be traded and ranked, be lowered, and replaced by Trey on Pelicans NBA. It's over for you. Fat bust. But she had no problem with him busting him in there. Skeeting. And she had a picture of his name tattooed on her face. This is a woman who, this is a crazy heifer. My humble opinion. This is insane. Now, Zion Williamson is 22 years old. This is another woman. He's a digital creator. She calls herself a digital creator. Yamil Taylor. I wonder if she's pregnant. But men have to realize, and Zion Williamson, I believe, is from North Carolina. So he's from a small town. And I'm sure these women are probably the finest things he's ever seen in his life. Sorry, this keeps coming up. But Shawn, when you see stuff like this, How harmful is it for Zion Williamson? And what can young men with money learn?
Well, this is harmful to Zion Williamson's professional reputation because he's got a woman making allegations as related to this pregnancy, and this woman isn't wrapped too tight. And when I look at this Mariah Mills, she reminds me of Alex on the 1988 movie called Fatal Attraction, and she's
87.
one of these women who is basically, I believe, delusional to a point where she's trying to go out here and sabotage Zion Williamson because he's having a healthy relationship with this other woman, Amika, and is having a baby with her. And what Mariah Mills wants is a relationship with Zion Williamson, but she knows she can't have it because she's an adult film star. And adult film stars by default are in the side piece position, and as a side piece, she is not going to be able to receive any of the respect of a girlfriend. And because she can't get that respect, she's jealous because this other woman has that status and as a baby mama, which isn't really that great of a status because Zion Williamson is a very dysfunctional individual. And he's a dysfunctional individual because instead of him leading his relationship, the women are running things because when you have an out-of-pocket woman like this Mariah Mills, this adult film star, making these kind of tweets on Twitter, it shows that Zion Williamson is not much of a man of character because he made the grave mistake of thinking that he could go out here and have these alleged sexual encounters. And I say alleged because I don't know if these are substantiated. Because when I listen to Mariah Mills and I look at her behavior, she's becoming more and more unhinged, similar to what I saw with Alex in Fatal Attraction. And at this point, she's making allegations and making threats on social media. And when I see people making threats like this, it really shows me that they are basically becoming more and more mentally unhinged. And when I look at Mariah Mills, she's looking more and more mentally unhinged because she's not only out here making these threats, she's also going out here putting tattoos on her face. And somebody putting a tattoo on their face really shows me they have mental health issues. And Zion Williamson, he really needs to start taking action as related to one going out here and demanding that this woman again go out here and get a pregnancy test to substantiate any sort of alleged pregnancy and do things through the court. And two, he needs to go out here and get a DNA test. And three, he needs to go out here and put in a restraining order because the behaviors that this Mariah Mills is participating in, they are escalating to the point of criminal behavior. So when I look at Zion Williamson, sadly, this is a textbook simp who got himself in a fatal attraction
Big simp.
situation with an Arkham certified woman. And this Arkham certified woman is participating in crazy behavior because she's jealous of this other woman, Amika, his girlfriend, having a life that she wants and covets. And because she can't get the bag, she wants to try to break the man. And that shows me how much of a woman in crisis that Mariah Mills is and how she needs a 72-hour hold because she's Arkham certified. But when I look at Zion Williamson, he's a textbook beta male simp. And I look at him again, a sad man because he wasn't really thinking critically. And because he wasn't thinking critically, he got himself in a situation with a predatory woman that is turning out to become a fatal attraction situation.
Yes, Fatal Attraction was 87, not 88. But
Well, it's been a while.
yeah, it's been a while. But this reminds me, actually, this reminds me of a thin line between love and hate. She's Brandy. She hasn't burned this car yet. She hasn't jacked up this shit at the police station.
Yep.
She didn't burn down Chocolate City yet, but it's coming. She's a woman scorned. By the way, they got that Fatal Attraction TV show on Paramount.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know you're against the remakes and the sequels. Yeah. He needs to get a DNA test. I mean, I'd caution to get a DNA test even on his girlfriend. Don't stop these. What did Chris Breezy say? These hoes ain't loyal.
Nope.
And Zion, that's not an attack against your lady. I know you probably love her and trust her, but I'm just saying, brother, you got money. Women, you a lick. Once you pregnant, get a girl pregnant, that's it.
You're stuck with her for the next 18 years at minimum.
Probably longer than that.
Yeah, because you got to take care of those kids.
If you have a child, that's a commitment for life.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of ratchetness, last thing I want to talk about, I didn't watch it. I wanted to do a separate video. I, of course, have heard about it, but people have been talking about how ratchet the BET awards were. And Shawn, I know you didn't watch it, but I'll ask on Twitter, did you see some of the clips and highlights that they had from the BET Awards?
I only saw pictures, and I was disturbed by what I saw.
Well, why don't you elaborate?
I saw this, I don't know, this woman with this colored hair looking like a porn star. I saw Fat Joe looking like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle on crack. I saw things that I just, it's like it came out of the imagination of Amos and Andy if they were smoking psychedelic drugs. It's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that's BET. What do we expect?
Yeah, and with Tyler Perry in charge, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, well, Tyler Perry, it isn't even official that he actually owns that yet. But I want to say what I saw. Basically, this is I think a clip we have here from Tariq's website.
Yeah. And I'm the reason. Hey.
They didn't hide it this year. Usually they're a little more classy and they throw the ratchetness at the end or in the middle so it don't overtake it. But they went full ratchet. It was Ratchetness Express.
Yeah.
Did y'all see it?
Yeah, I saw it. The late David Carroll called it the BET Minstrel Awards, and now it's living up to that name.
It's the EBT Awards. That's what I call it. Motherfucker look like I hate to say it, but man, it look like gremlins. It was awful. It was awful. And BET has always, BET has done, BET is so bad for black people. It makes the KKK look like the fruit of Islam.
That's embarrassing.
It makes the state of Mississippi blush. Mississippi done fucked over more BET fucked over more black people in Mississippi. I hate saying that, but that's the truth. At least when you had BET, when Bob Johnson ran it, there was some balance, I could say, because they had like Teen Summit. They had Tavis Smiley with his evening show. They had BET News. They had Donnie Simpson, who did the what's the name of the show? Donnie Simpson did. It was a countdown for music. That was really why BET was created. One of the reasons BET was created, Shawn, was to give black artists the opportunities to put their music videos on television. That's why it was created. And Bob Johnson in 2000, he wanted to sell it because he wanted to get into the airline business. There are substitutes, I say, to BET. One of the biggest substitutes you can watch, this channel, Gboot 2786, or Shawn James's channel, Nicole's View, Drew Story News, Lisa Cabrera. There's a bunch. I'm leaving off some people. Tariq Nasheed is one. Juan B. I just want to read to you something too I got here, but Video Soul, yeah. BET Uncut at 2. Oh, I remember that. Ludacris. New Orleans got tip drill too, Bookie. That's why we watched it. Sheila Johnson, who was Bob Johnson's wife, she said she's ashamed of the network. In 2010, she said she was ashamed of what the network has become. I don't watch it. I suggest to my kids they don't watch it. When we started BET, it was going to be the Ebony magazine on television. We had public affairs program. We had news. I had a show called Team Summit. We had a large variety of programming. But the problem is that then the video revolution started up and something started happening, and I didn't like it at all. And I remember during those days, we would sit up and watch those videos and decide which ones were going on and which were not. We got a lot of backlash from the recording artists, and we had to start showing them. I didn't like the way women were being portrayed in these videos, but y'all showed it. The Reverend Delman Coates has an organization called Enough is Enough. And they led protests every week and outside the residences of BET executives for what they claim are negative stereotypes of Black people perpetrated by the music videos. They said Enough is Enough is backed in April 2008 report titled The Rap on Rap by the Parents Television Council that criticized BET's rap programming, suggesting that gratuitous sexual, violent, and profane content were targeting children and teens. They got criticized, that's correct. They didn't air Coretta Scott King's funeral. That was bad. But a lot of people have criticized it, from George Curry, Chuck D, Spike Lee, Aaron Magruder has gone at it. It is cooning and buffooning. And no, it's not good. And what made it even worse was when Busta Rhymes or Busta Lives was telling that lie about how hip-hop, Jamaicans created hip-hop. I'm sick of hearing this shit.
I'm about to take that to the barbecue.
You didn't create that.
That was created by foundational Black Americans.
James Brown.
James Brown, Rudy Ray Moore.
James Brown, Rudy Ray Moore. You had H. Rap Brown. You had Gil Scott Heron.
Yep.
All of this bullshit you talking about, you created hip hop. Hispanics created hip hop. Bullshit. But yeah, you're gonna take it to the barbecue. Yeah, take it to the barbecue. Juan B went in on him. He called him Busta Lies.
Yep, this bootleg needs to be roasted up crispy.
I'm so disappointed. Look, as a kid, I love Busta Rhymes. I love Busta Rhymes when he did his videos, but I was you know, when he had his last album he did, I think in 07, when he did the Bust It remix, Bust It with Missy Elliott and so forth. Papoose. I used to love that shit. But now, I can't, I'm glad he ain't putting out no new albums. I wouldn't listen to him humming. All I care. And he's still, and let's be real, even if you listen to what he said, some of the stuff he does in his act, he took from FBAs. Listen carefully when he does the woo-ha. Somebody put a video up. That was Big Bang Hank from the Sugar Hill Gang that used to do that. You ever heard it?
No, I don't listen to too much Busta Rhymes, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, lying like a motherfucker. Jamaicans built hip hop. What the fuck? And that's not an attack against Jamaicans.
Nope.
It's not an attack. But he keeps pushing this lie time and time again.
They want to revise history to make it look like other people who non-blacks made up rap, but it was something made by foundational Black Americans. It was made by Black people. I was there in the Bronx when it was happening. It was mostly foundational Black Americans, and what they want to do is take the credit away so they can take away the art form from us, like the way they did with jazz and rock and roll, and we can't let them do that.
Yeah, you asked my thoughts on Essence Fest. Essence Fest actually is this week. That's like one of the biggest events in New Orleans. If you ever come here, is Essence Festival, because during the 4th of July weekend, it's great. I've been to it multiple times. The seminars can be great and so forth. I don't know about the concerts, because this year they do have like its 50th anniversary of hip hop, which I already know what's going to be out there. I'm not interested in seeing it. But there is some use, obviously, for local vendors, for people. I know that you can put your products out there. You can network with people. You can socialize. They got fine women out here, man. God, whew. That's about the best thing about the Essence Fest. But I would not be at Al Sharpton's seminar. And I think a lot of people won't be there either. But listen to this live. This is what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Jamaica gave birth to hip hop.
Will be no turntables without two turntables.
Hip hop
without
is Jamaica. He's a yard man.
Yeah,
He's Jamaica.
There would not be hip hop. There would not be two turntables without Jamaican culture.
Puerto Ricans and blacks created hip hop.
No.
Herc still gets his credit as being the one who spearheaded the birth of the culture. But when I say it was created by Puerto Ricans and blacks, it's because Kool Herc can't create breakdancing.
Right. Graffiti.
He ain't create graffiti.
Right.
Puerto Ricans had a lot to do with that part.
Absolutely.
That's a fucking lie. That's debunked. This is rapping in the, hold on, this is rap.
Was done, God's voice was heard. He said, now Noah, let me tell you what to do. Calling animals 2 by 2. So he called them in an ox, 2 by 2. He called the birds, the ox with the kangaroo. Then he called in Jaffa, the ham and sham. Then God began to flood the land. He raised his hands to heaven on high.
I'm not going to play all of it, but that you get the idea. The influence of ska, like the Jamaicans like ska music, right?
Before reggae come into its own.
When we was playing the boogie woogie and the shuffle and thing like that, we realized
that came from Fats Domino. Dwan B talked about it, but my man Fats Domino from New Orleans, I honored him yesterday. Fats Domino, they created that. But how y'all, but Busta Rhymes keeps going around saying this stuff and it's been debunked. Tired of him. Now that I think about it, his shit didn't make sense. That's y'all. I'm so sick of this. I'm glad. Just listen to Dwan B. Just broke it down. But y'all don't mention James Brown, Gil Scott-Heron. That's who made that. And this is what's going around to the world, around the world, when they show black people act a damn fool. They have no problem pushing poison around the world.
Yep. They want to control a narrative on hip hop and rap and make it look like, oh, this is these other people. They want to take away the word black from it.
And Busta Rhymes, yeah.
These bootleg rhymes. He sold us out.
He got discovered. Chuck D was the one that gave him that moniker. Chuck D gave him the name Busta Rhymes.
So he got his from an FBA, but now he want to try to take it away.
Fuck out of here. Yeah. Yeah, Kid Gravity got a video on him. Yeah, now that I think about it, some of his shit was, I'm not gonna lie, there was some stuff I liked when I was a kid listening to him. I like the remix, the song he did with Janet Jackson. Stuff he did with Mariah Carey. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it was fire. The producers really put it down. Oh, I'm just scrolling through Twitter, Shawn. Look, it's your old friend, Camille Winbush. She says hi.
America's favorite, Halle Berry's America's favorite bust down. She's OnlyFans' favorite bust down.
Bust downtown, huh?
She's in the 80% off pile.
Oh, what did Yoda have to say? R&B for yeah, I'm looking at my man R&B Forever. He said he's talking to Jamel Hill. So I thought she may have said something, but he says you blame black men all the time. Yeah, she was ranting about the Supreme Court's thing. All right. Shawn, do you have anything you want to promote for tomorrow? What's tomorrow's live stream going to be about?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out what tomorrow's live stream is going to be. It may be a new one talking about the power of walking away, the 2023 edition. That may be the topic for tomorrow night's live stream, that may be the topic for tomorrow night's show.
Yeah. A lot of people were complaining about the BET Award, man, but yeah, that don't surprise me. They didn't care.
No.
Negroes don't care.
They are lost people.
Yeah. Jamel, I don't know. Oh, you talk about Camille Winbush? Is she still dating that white boy? I don't know. I don't follow with her. Shawn got blocked by her. He told her her booty needs some lotion. Didn't you say that?
I think so. Yeah, she needs some lotion because she was looking ashy on that player's pictorial she was done.
Yeah. Well, brother Shawn, why don't you do a plug-in for your book? We're gonna wrap it up right now.
All right, my new book, John Haynes, 1987, is now available in paperback and Kindle formats and other digital formats at online booksellers such as Amazon.com and other online booksellers like Google Play, Smashwords, and Barnes and Noble. And if you want to pick up the first John Haynes comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, you can get your copy on Lulu.com right now in paper format.
Yes, and you also can get The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby on Amazon Kindle. Ladies and gentlemen, you could also get Gotta Get On Up and Video Soul on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon, where sold. All right. You want to advertise with our channel, please send me an email, gavin.grich1@gmail.com. We talk about business. You can support Black business like that by advertising. I'll do videos. So please come on out. All right. And please donate to my Cash App, PayPal, Zelle if you would like to support the channel. All right, Shawn. I'm going to wrap it up. But thank you for coming in, man. We've had a great live stream, a great show. This has been another edition of Random
All right.
Topic.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes, thank you. And before you go, Shawn, I do want to ask you a quick question. So if you don't mind staying on before I close it out,
All right.
after I close it out, hit that like, share, and subscribe button too, ladies and gentlemen. Hit the notification bell so we can go live. You'll never miss anything. And please, I'll see you all in the next one. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button. All right. Love y'all. Sorry for the voice, but we'll be back soon. I'll holla. Peace.